Hey guys, it's Jason Lee Morrison again. And I didn't even mean to start anything with this. Um, I just posted something yesterday, and there are a lot of questions and really good feedback. And so I think we're going to dig deeper into this. So I'm gonna call this Line Upon Line, um, and brought to you by The Perfect Fucking Life. If you want to follow along in the book, get the book on Amazon or go to theperfectfuckinglife.com. It's not really following along, but there's a lot of stuff I refer to that's in there. But a lot has been I've developed a lot in my mind since then. Anyway, in order to there's something we have to cover before we go on from yesterday's thing. And you'll kind of see why at the end. And again, just like with the thing in Genesis, I did not start out trying to prove anything. I just was studying the book again, as if I were Indiana Jones, and I just dug it up, and no one else had ever seen it before. And it's a 3,500-year-old ancient manuscript, and I opened the first page and start reading it. So that's the way I'm approaching that book. And the way that what we're going to talk about today is a bit different, but you'll see how it relates. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's a nuclear physicist and brilliant mind, amazing guy. And I love just sitting in the room and talking to him about, because I'm not like I'm not a scientist. I'm just intrigued by, how this universe functions. And so it just bouncing ideas off him and asking him questions. And in the course of this, one day I asked him, what is the smallest element of this universe? And the reason I was asking him that is because I was just thinking, well, everything is made out of something. So what the fuck is everything made out of? And we talked for a while. He told me about quaints and quarks and these little tiny subatomic particles, and it was it was really interesting learning about how much we know about how small things are, because as big as the universe is, we don't even know how big it is. And as big as the components of it are we right in the middle? Does it get that small too? Anyway, but I realized later that the question I was really asking, what I was really after was, what are the fundamental building blocks of existence? Like what is everything, again, what's everything comprised of? What's it made out of? It has to be made out of something. And the deeper you go, the smaller you go, even that's made out of something. So how the fuck do we, how the fuck does that work? So anyway, this is what I came up with. I call it the annihilation of nothing and the advent of existence. And I'm going to be reading a little bit of this because you're thinking about things in a way you've probably never thought about them before. So follow along with me. Reading through it is difficult. So I'm going to go through this and try and make sense of it to you guys. So, okay. So like I said before, everything is made of something. Nothing is made of nothing. Damn phone. Fuck. Anyway, nothing is made. Okay, so nothing is obviously comprised. There's not a thing in this universe that's made of nothing. Everything is made of something. So don't equate nothing to zero. Zero is something, and its presence brings with it tenets of reason, which is something. Nothing is not a vacuum. It's not empty space. It's not even infinity. It is no thing. and therefore bears no meaning. The laws of mathematics don't exist in it. Nothing, right? For if something, and nothing is all pervasive. For nothing to be real, it occupies everything, right? Everything is nothing. It's all pervasive. For if something were to exist, it would infinitely replace nothing. Once something pops into existence, nothing is annihilated. It's gone, right? So our so-called laws of the universe point to it, just as they point to the concept of infinity. But infinity is, we know it's there, but we can't comprehend it. You can't wrap your mind around it. But math points right to it. So we know it exists, but I can't comprehend it. Same with nothing, right? So Aristotle probably has the best definition for nothing, and that is, nothing is what rocks dream about. Curiously, though, there cannot exist one elemental thing. One thing is not enough to exist. So, in other words, if I have a grain of chalk and nothing makes the chalk up, nothing, like there is nothing that makes that grain of chalk up. That grain of chalk is all that is. It's not made of anything. That's the fundamental thing. And that's all that exists, right? Well, then that occupies everything. Nothing is gone, annihilated, but that one thing occupies all of it, right? So it exists. The problem with that is, for one thing to exist alone in singular is singularly pervasive and equally as meaningless as nothing. So that one grain of chalk, that's all you have. The absence of meaning is nothing. And we'll get into that in a little bit. For something has meaning. No thing does not. Not only that, but if you have that one grain of chalk, there is no object to which its meaning, if it had any, could be meaningful to. So with one grain of chalk, what you could do with it, you could write it on a chalkboard or whatever. Well, you can't, because there's no fucking chalkboard. There's nothing but that. And if you add more, another grain of milk is a better example. You have a drop of milk. Okay, that's the one elemental thing. Nothing makes that up. Now I'm just going to, add more of that one thing. Now I just have the same thing occupying everything that exists. So that it doesn't work. One thing by itself cannot exist. So, and there is no quantum observer here. There's no God. There's nothing. Right? If it is not blank, if it is not something, then it is not. It cannot be a question mark, right? So there can't be like, we'll move on. That will kind of flesh itself out. Again, nothing is pervasive. It takes over all that is. So nothing, everything is nothing, or nothing is nothing. The advent of something then means that the something is everything, right? So if something exists, it's everything there is. If there is only one thing and it is not, like it's that piece of chalk, it's not, has no meaning, has no, then it is nothing, then it is all of nothing in it, and nothing is everything. So if you only have that one existent thing and that's all that exists, it displaces nothing, but it has no meaning. It's nothing again, right? So you're back to nothing. So here's the thing. Two things cannot exist. Only three can. Only three things can exist. For anything to occupy the place of nothing, it has to be three things. Why? The introduction of a second thing brings with it a third. It's called relationship, right? So like an atom, you have an electron and you have the nucleus. And if you don't have that relationship, if there's no, whatever that relationship is, in that case, it's energy, but that relationship is just as elemental as entity. If there was not, that relationship did not exist, there wouldn't be an atom, right? So you have to have three things. You can't have less than three things for anything to exist. 0 plus 1 equals 3. 0 plus 1 equals 3, right? Because the plus is something. So the advent of existence is also the advent of meaning. For meaning is not existent apart from at least two different elements in relationship, which can then bear and emit meaning through the relationship of more than one pervasive thing. Meaning is then born through relationship of two different elements which have meaning one to another. For if the two elements were the same, again, remember with the chalk or the drop of milk, there would be no meaning one to the other. Therefore, no relationship would exist between them, for they are the same and then only one thing, which is, again, nothing. If you now say there are more than three, this is crazy, but bear with me. If you now say there are more than three elements, you've surpassed the fundamentals of existence. So you already have existence. Now you try to add more than three. Well, this will sound weird, but for that fourth thing to exist and be additive, it must exist on its own. It's only one thing. So only three things. Existence can only occur in Trinity. And I know you guys are thinking I'm leading you somewhere, but I'm not. I'm just going to leave it at that. Therefore, the basis of everything existent is only exactly the three elements with which existence is comprised. Exactly three. For none of the elements exist alone. They are existent only in Trinity. And here's the thing, only this Trinity exists. It occupies it displaces nothing and occupies everything. It's the annihilation of nothing and the advent of existence. But the advent existence is only possible in Trinity, in two different things with a relationship between them. So 3 equals 1. Because it is all that is and pervasively existent. And there can be no room in existence for any other thing. The question arises as to the nature of, what about the universe? What about all this other, the visceral existence of our universe? It seems reasonable to believe that it may be comprised of a seemingly intentional and intelligent projection or emission from this Trinity thing that exists. Right? Because there can't be more than three things existent. So what about everything around us? It seems though this Trinity may emit what we're living in right now. It may be an emission of that existence. The universe would not then be infinite per se, but infinitely comprised of infinity. Now, that sounds weird. Because it's a projection. It's not like the universe isn't self-existent. It is infinitely. So as far as we know, the universe, I mean, some people say there are bounds to it, whatever. But as far as we don't know the edge of it, it seems infinite. But it seems to be infinitely comprised of infinity because of that projection from an external source. So this non-lineal, it's not lineal, it's not stacked on top of each other the way we think of, the way I was thinking when I first had the conversation with the nuclear physicist. It's not like the quaint, whatever, the quarks and this and that. They don't comprise the fundamental components that build upon and build upon and build upon and make everything. It's as if this emission kind of, it's as if those things are an emission from this thing, which is interesting because when you talk about quantum theory versus Einstein's theory of relativity, they don't add up because there are different levels of, one is for really big things and one's for really small things. But they make sense in and of themselves. Mathematically, they make sense, but they don't make sense. They don't fit together because we're thinking about it hierarchically. But if it's coming from an external source, like think about it from the side, you can still have these theories that exist and are relevant and pertinent, and that's how things operate because it's not based upon the thing below it in size or whatever. So these rules don't have to be relative to each other. They don't have to be bonded. And there are likely others yet undiscovered beyond the range of our current capacity to observe, like other things like, the theory of relativity that describes how things interact at a certain slice of this projection. So this projection concept, it gives rise to more acute reason regarding the nature of our context of thought toward our visceral existence and environment. So science is discovery. It's measurement and attribution of meaning. That's what it is. It's, people say, oh, I believe in God, not science, or I believe in science, not God. That's fucking stupid. That's like saying, I believe in carpenters, not tape measures, or vice versa. They're two different things. Science is man's thirst to, actually, it's man's thirst to create, to emit. So we have also baked into us the need to paint the world around us with meaning. In order to do that, we must understand the world we live in. So we are measuring. Science is a tape measure. We're measuring, we're observing, we're seeing what happened, we're seeing why are we here? What's the basis and the foundation of whatever we're observing, whatever we're trying to prove. And then from there, we can make speculation, or we can then emit meaning upon the world around us. We can create. People ask, there's a prevailing thought that the difference between man and animals is an intelligence-based thing. Humans create. Animals don't. They build. The creation and building, like building a nest or whatever, is far different than creating. Somehow, I don't know, we have the same characteristics of whatever the fuck it is that's emitting our universe into existence. We ourselves desire to emit meaning on things, and we're the only thing around that does. And I'm sure some of you can draw a pretty clear conclusion from that, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to quote anything. Okay, so this, I'm going to wrap it up here because I don't want to go too long, but this projection concept, it's interesting to think about. So science is discovery, measurement, attribution of meaning. Tools such as mathematics are but derivatives of this. They're like, they came, okay, we need to measure this. We need to come up with a way to do it. So mathematics came about through that. It's a product of the human drive, again, to project meaning upon its environment, a seeming and curious shared attribute with this trinity. To ascribe meaning, we must have knowledge. To gain knowledge, we must measure. To measure, we must have size. Size is a human construct bounded by linear human thought process. Remember what I was talking about? It's not from the ground up the way we're thinking. Quarks and quaints and shit don't make up other shit. It's seemingly a projection. So what I mean by that is size is a human construct bounded by linear human thought process. It works fairly well. It's helpful, but not reasonable. Now, okay, I'll just go through this, and I know there are going to be questions and vehement, probably disagreement to it, but that's fine. We have to be able to discuss. In order to establish a baseline from which size can be derived, we must have a universal constant, right? But there's no edge against which to calibrate our measurement. There's no edge of the universe to say, oh, this is whatever, right? 1 yard, etc. So we actually, early on, we made ourselves the baseline. The ancient unit of measure called the cubit, for example, is the distance between a human's elbow to their fingertips, about 18 inches. I'm not sure if there were units of measure before that, but I know that is an old school way of measuring. Everything is either bigger or smaller than us, in front or behind, closer or further, faster or slower. We created measure to inform quantity, which we created. Then we began to see the entirety of existence through this self-created lens. Then we taught ourselves to regard human perspective as infallible, universal baseline. Then we taught ourselves to regard anything beyond our ability to quantify by rules of our own rudimentary contrivance as absurd. So again, if I can't measure it from here to here, well, shit, it doesn't exist, right? We know there are things in this universe and outside of it that we can't explain. And that's an easy out because we can't measure it. We can't explain it. What's explanation of something? It's the quantifying it. We can't do that because our units of measure we don't have any units of measure for that. So we just throw it out. Oh, that's it can't exist if we can't measure it. We're the fuckers that came up with measurement and size. So again, we taught ourselves to regard anything beyond our ability to quantify by rules of our own rudimentary contrivance as absurd. Our visceral existence does, however, seem reasonable because most of it that we can measure complies, of course, with the fixed nature of our systems of measure. So we can measure most of the shit that's close to us. But again, when you talk about quantum theory and theory of relativity, they don't add up. So there's something missing there. It might well be that we will never understand those things of our existence which do not cooperate with the rules within which our systems of measure are bounded. For if visceral existence is infinitely comprised of infinity, no constant exists nor can. The statement itself, uniform infinity, is absurd, right? infinity is not uniform. So in this particular pursuit of reason as to the components of existence, I had no intention whatsoever of arriving where I did. The word Trinity is obviously commonly affiliated with certain views that exist on the nature of God, specifically to the Bible. Again, it wasn't my intention, but it helped crack my mind a little wider open as to the nature of whatever the fuck it is from which the universe and all that we know seems to spill forth. You can call it God, you can call it whatever the fuck you want, but whatever this fucking thing is, now I think looking at it from this perspective, and another thing, another very important thing, for existence to happen, it displaces nothing, right? Well, nothing is no thing, and it is impossible. Therefore, this triune thing that occupies all of existence always has. It is infinitely, like, it's not only omnitemporal, it's outside of time. It's always existed. It's always been there. It has to, because nothing is not a thing, right? Anyway, so that's important because we tend to think of God as, you know, the gray-haired guy upstairs, whatever. Like I said, don't even call it God, but it is if you don't want to. But there seems to be a nebulous, freaking powerful fucking thing that is all existent, according to this line of reasoning. And then within that, if you already have preconceived notions about God or whatever, go back and check yourself with that, right? It is quite likely that whatever the fuck that thing is a lot more complex than the idea that you have in your mind about what God is. So that is the understanding of that there is the possibility for a triune existence. And in fact, it's the only thing that really can exist. And it's the source of everything else that exists, because seemingly it's a projection, but that's my own theory. But I think we need to knock on the head sometimes and realize who the fuck we're actually dealing with. Like I said, you'd call it whatever, but it ain't the universe. You can't call it the universe, because the universe is a byproduct of whatever that fucking thing is. All right. Well, we'll get back to the other stuff. Again, I really appreciate the questions, and don't be afraid to, blast me if you think I'm fucked up or whatever. I'd welcome any and all criticism. All right. Have a good one and mull that over. Again, if you want to read the article on it, I'll put the link up here to my website, theperfectfuckinglife.com. And on the website, you can order the book, or you can order it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. All right, guys, have a good one.